stream going live here in just a second. It always takes me an extra few seconds here before we are officially live. And if I am live, hello everyone. I think we are now officially live on all platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Hello world, how are you? Welcome back to Tech Talk Tuesday. I think we're on episode 6 now. I'm also not good at math. I don't do math much. To throw it to you, Scott, and Will start us off and welcome our guest. And hopefully our other guest joins here shortly, but he is also an active first responder and may be on the call.
Yeah, and I'm on duty, so I may be on one during this call too. So, hello everybody, and thanks for joining us for Tech Talk Tuesday. I'm Scott Roseberry, Battalion Chief out of Garland, Texas, which is right next to Dallas. The chair of the International Association of Fire Chiefs Technology Council, and we're here to talk about all things technology. We want to definitely reach out or send thank yous to Fire Rescue One and our other partner, International Association of Fire Chiefs, for letting us host this, and I'll turn it over to Will.
Yeah, Will Brocious, Deputy Chief of Business Services at the Charlottesville Fire Department here in Central Virginia. Um, I'm also on the Tech Council, serve as the secretary. I really don't know what I'm doing yet. I'm just kind of, just going as the wind blows. Now, we also, Jason, we do a little thing here where we beg sponsors. And so we've been trying to get drink sponsors and none. So
No.
I've begged, uh-oh,
Yeah.
Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
nothing, everything. So today's Kirkland, man. I'm just,
Monster.
just good old fashioned Kirkland water. So
Imagine Monster could have their logo right there.
yeah, no love from anybody yet. So
No.
Kirkland, if you're out there, we love you.
I'm sure Costco would be right on that.
There you go. There you go. Jason, you want to introduce yourself for everybody?
Yeah, you guys are going big on the sponsors, by the way.
Trying.
Are you saying we should start smaller? Maybe that's the problem. We've been going too big.
Yeah.
Go big or go home.
Nice to meet everyone. Jason Serrano. I'm Director of Research and Development for IDEX Fire and Safety, also a retired firefighter, ex-entrepreneur, kind of a sellout. I work for the corporation now. It's been good, though. Been pretty happy about that. So summarize what I do is I mostly travel the country and talk about our solutions to the fire service. And then I kind of manage what we're developing going forward.
Nice. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thanks.
We're getting, like I said, just a couple guys just hanging out. I'll tell you guys something I got to do yesterday for our team. So just unorthodox. The team's been crushing it, business services, from training to vehicles or whatever. We went on a little team excursion yesterday to Top Golf. So Wynn played a couple rounds of Top Golf. I probably lost, self-admittedly. But there's something to that, right? About your team. Just sometimes just kind of getting off site and just getting to know each other on a personal level and hanging out as opposed to just being a firefighter. But Jason, your past experience as being a firefighter, tell us where you were, how many years you were doing it. Tell us about the job, man.
Yeah, I tell people I was very fortunate. I got to pass through all different types of the fire service. I was bad at all of them, but I got to live, I got to live in the rural area. Like I started as a volunteer, and when I was in college, I was there for several years, and then worked in University City for 4 years, and that was like right next to St. Louis City, so very urban. And then got to work at a fire district at Pattonville Fire District in the St. Louis metropolitan area. I was there for 13 years, retired as a captain.
Nice, nice, nice. Now,
Hey,
what
that was the
made
best
you?
position. You retired at the best position you could be at.
Yeah, I stopped right before battalion chief. I didn't want to bring the mail. So
Yeah, yeah. Definitely smarter than you and I, Scott.
Yeah.
Now, Jason, what led you to that decision? You just woke up one day and was like, "This is it," or just an opportunity fell in your lap? How'd that go?
man, it's pretty random. So I was a baseball player in college. I was studying engineering and ran into a buddy of mine. He's currently one of the assistant chiefs at Creve Coeur Fire Department in St. Louis. But at the time, we were both engineering students. I played baseball. He played football. I met him in a bar, and he had a big minute or two pager on his belt. And I was like, "Yo, what is that?" Called him Yo, and he's like, "That's my fire pager." Like, what does it do? Call you if your house is on fire? Like, I had no idea. I was ignorant to the entire volunteer thing. And he's like, "No, you idiot. Like, I'm a fireman." I'm like, "No, you're a football player." And he explained it to me. And so I summarized it as like, "You mean I could just go sign up and they'll give me the clothes and put me on the truck?" And he's like, "Yeah." Signed up the next day and here we are. So
Yeah,
It's amazing. Yeah, I fell in love with that job real quick.
yeah, that's the way it goes, right, Scott? The bug
Yeah,
bites you.
I almost feel like we may have to explain to some of the audience what a pager is,
Right.
or was.
I still see those minuters floating around on some people's belts. So
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
know
We used
that,
to.
for like the volunteer side, they still use them. Yeah, it's a still a great way to communicate to the volunteer side.
Yeah, and apparently they're not as reliant upon cell reception and whatnot. We recently
Mhm.
went to a fire conference up in Pennsylvania, and so a lot more rural departments we saw definitely still had those pagers on their hips. Man, it's to me it kind of ties back to the lifeblood of the fire service and that volunteer, mentality and looking out for your community. So it's nice to see, so it's good. So now on the rig, captain, you're like, you know what? It's time to move on. So tell us about that. Where'd you go after that? Straight to IDEX or what?
in a sense, yeah. So 2010 is when I conceptualized the tech we'll kind of talk about today. And it took a long, I mean, we had to do patents and development. I mean, it was 2016 before I was doing stuff you could kind of see, simulator type stuff. Got into development 2017. And then we had it on the fire ground starting in 2017, kept developing. I was almost product ready in 2018. And by summer of 2018, I had sold the IDEX. So in 2019, I had to go full time with the company and bring the tech forward. So it's a pretty good piece of tech. The company itself, like I never could have kept doing what I was doing by myself. Just way too much engineering support needed.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's time to move on. It was tough to leave. I miss grocery shopping with the crew and making. I mean, I cook a lot too, but making fun of the cooks. It's funny. Like at Firehouse, we make fun of the cooks while they're cooking for us. Maybe it's just us. Maybe we're the biggest
No,
jerks.
that's
But
that's that's everywhere.
okay, yeah, I thought
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I was always a dishwasher, because you learn at the firehouse, everybody, especially around dinner, breakfast, lunch, everybody has that natural role, right? And some people just gravitate toward cooking. And I was that
Mhm.
person that kind of gravitated toward cooking and was politely asked to not do it anymore. And so I just
Yeah,
found my niche, man, at the kitchen sink. So I'm like, hey
right.
man, pass those dirty plates over, and everybody just finds their role in there. So
We could have used you because we spent more time playing games to see who had dishes than it would take to do the dishes.
yeah, I'm like, hey man, just bring them over here, buddy.
Yeah,
It will
I'd
be all
rather
right.
go ahead and wash the dishes than play games. Let's get
Right?
it done and over with. Because when they get a run, I'm gonna just be behind washing dishes. That's like the only time I get to wash dishes too, is when they get a run. I've gotten really good at sweeping and mopping ever since I promoted to battalion chief. They see me with a dish, they push me out of the way. It's like, no, I really want to wash dishes this time.
Yeah, it's like it's
Tired of pushing
okay.
the broom.
It's okay. So now, Jason, got a little bit of a background on the fire service. We got a master chef over here as well as an engineer. But tell us about IDEX. What do you guys got going on over there?
So not everybody's heard of IDEX Fire and Safety, but everybody's heard of our company. So they're a pretty large corporation, and we own Hale, Class One, Akron, First, and let's see, Weldon Electronics, at least here in the U.S. And then Vetter is technically a European company, but it's also you see Vetter over here more so than some of the others. But for me, it was a what I was doing was all about water flow. So I needed valves and pumps and electronics, and especially after going to this company, having all of that engineering under one roof or one umbrella, it would have been really tough to pull this off otherwise. So it's a really good fit.
Yeah, so tell me, like, what was it that you kind of invented, and what need did you see? How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, it started as a really small need. Like for those of y'all that have been pump operators, it was just a little fire, no hero stories. That just man, they weren't calling for water, and I was constantly running circles around the truck. Pump panel was on the wrong side, as it is 50% of the time. It's okay. And I was just like, man, like if I could have a pump panel on both sides of the truck, like it'd be so much easier. And and we were on a fire department, good union department, 4 people on a truck. Like we weren't understaffed in a sense. So for me, it was just convenience and efficiency and visibility, right? Like you're a better pump operator when you can see your crew. You're on the radio less, you're involved with the fire ground more, you can see things. And I was like, man, I want to do this. And I realized I was digitizing the pump panel, putting it on both sides. And then I was like, you idiot, you can automate this. And we went from opening and closing valves and doing all this to really just giving autopilot for your pump. And being that early in the game, once you start with that, you can keep going. I can fix pressure control. I can have wireless nozzles. I can get information to the attack crew, on and on and on. So once you hit that level of tech, you can really accelerate. Because I don't think the fire service would have adopted it as much if it was just an electronic pump panel. You know what I'm saying? There's got to be a lot of benefit for us to take on that risk.
That's really, because think about like on highway accidents, would depend upon how you pull your rig, and which side of the road it is. Pump panels, it needs to be on the forethought so you park the right way. Because exactly like you want to be able to see, especially on the highway incident. Plus, you want to be able to block that or protect that driver, their pump, whoever's operating the pump panel too. That's a pretty much a game changer.
Yeah, it's not worth getting hit, and once
Yeah.
you get it wrong, it's so tough to fix. Some of us, how many of us are running on 3-lane highways? Like sometimes you don't have a good choice no matter what you
Yeah.
do. So
Jason, one thing that you talked about there is it not just it couldn't just be an electric pump panel. I'm curious to expand upon that of like the need to do more than one thing, and
yeah,
being multi-purpose. And I think sometimes you see a lot of technologies come to market, and it does this one thing, and sometimes there is beauty in that. But just
mhm.
with the lack of resources and lack of space and the need to do more with less, why is that important that it was more than just an electric pump panel and it was multi-purpose?
Yeah, I think, it's not like I had a strategy for that, but I think because as I was thinking this forward, that like you're saying, like I was like, wow, I can fix. Like I didn't know even until recently that 20. So something as simple as pressure control in the fire ground, right? Like we've all been there. You're in a fire, you're asking for more pressure. You're in a fire, you're asking for less pressure. Whatever. It's kind of the way we do it is really you're not fighting fire when you're doing that. And when fire doubles every 30 seconds, you wait 10 to 15 seconds just to get your water right. And you're talking on the radio and you're not advancing like just little things. But injuries. So 20% of the injuries happening at fire grounds are related to pressurized hose lines. Isn't that crazy? 1/5 of the injuries in the fire service are related to pressure control. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
you
we've all
know,
been beat up by too high a pressure, and it's a beating, and you get exhausted faster.
yeah, wear your crews out. There's a lot going on there, and we're seeing it because of what happens is we're just used to the way things are, and I get it. I fought fire forever. The irony is I've never got to use this on the fire ground. So, um, but yeah, you go out and talk to people, and the stories aren't always at the front of our minds. But if you look back on your career, the amount of times you've had to go back and do something because of stuff like that, it's amazing. And I think some of the things I enjoy the most about demonstrating this technology in front of the firefighters is they have so many questions, and they always like to. They're not like trying to play gotcha. Like you have to defeat technology, right? Like part of the scientific process is everybody comes up with a theory, right? Like in the science community, you have a theory, and everyone's like, "That's an amazing theory. Like we love what you did. We support you. You should push this forward." But do you know what the next step of the scientific process is? Is to attack that theory. The same people turn around and turn on you, and the job is to try to destroy it, and that's okay. So when we do these demos, it's a lot of fun because that's the process we're in right now. We've brought the theory to the fire service, and we're proving it, and now mostly we're just educating. So when I do demos, they're like, well, what about this and what about that? It just keeps bringing up another feature or another. They're like, wow, you solved that problem too. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, firefighters love that kind of gotcha moment where they like, oh, we got him on this one. I was going around talking to the stations one time about that one day that we may not be driving fire engines. Self-driving cars are so prevalent. They're self-driving semis. So I was talking about how one day in fact, firefighters in school today may never drive a fire engine. And they're like, oh, well, how's it going to know how to park at a fire? I was like, well, it's going to use artificial intelligence. It's going to do a hell of a lot better job than we do because we suck at it.
Yeah,
They
that's
Yeah,
thought they
funny.
had me. Like,
Yeah, we
I
just had
it,
some guys the other day talking about our latest vehicle purchases, and I just so happened to be coming around the corner, and I could hear the chatter, and I was like, "Hey, what are we talking about?" Instantly changes, and I was like, "Hey, no, no, no! I want you guys to be well informed. So when you get done training, come to my office and let me show you what we did." So pulled out the budget, start showing them how vehicles are replaced, involving them in the process, right? This is how it's done. This is how we spend money. This is how you do it in the future. Da 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 da. And as I feel like I'm being this mentor and trying to teach what I've been taught. So one of the guys in the recipe is like, Chief, listen, I'm just gonna make something up. So I mean, if you just want to save your time, no matter what you say, I'm just gonna make something up. And man, we all busted out laughing. Just classic firefighter moment, man. And it helped me realize that really it's a state of mind, right? So Jason, even if you're not carrying the title, right, of a firefighter, like once you're a firefighter, you're always a firefighter, no matter where rank you go to, no matter if you leave the business to pursue other things, like every day listening to what you're saying is your job right now is to improve the jobs of the people doing it in the field. So it's no different than when you were a company officer, right? Your job was to make sure that you can improve the quality of the service that your crew would deliver. So you're still a firefighter. I just thought it was hilarious that no matter what age we get to, we all are always down to have these conversations, these debates, and so on and so forth. Has that kind of been your experience working in the company?
Yeah, I have a very different approach than a lot of people because um, I don't want everybody to get hives here, but I was a medic for those 20 years, and it's look, I loved it for a long time, and though it taught me to ask questions, right? Like you're with people all the time, you're on the scene with the patient, and they don't know what to tell you. They're not medically trained. They don't know what's important or not, right? And businesses like that, like all the little hidden things in business that you don't think of are what can get you, or maybe you're going to miss a good opportunity. So when you have that mindset of how to dig in, ask questions, like learn what they're saying, like what else do you need to hear? So like all that and that the nervousness, right? Like we don't like getting caught in bad situations. So all of that, like it's the fire service people are, if we can, I would say I struggle with the professionalism, but the intuition is really strong in business for people, in especially EMS.
Yeah. Now I'm I'm
Yeah,
I'm a recovering EMT, so I took I took it 20 years ago, Jason. And in my new department, I've been here about 6 or 7 months. Didn't transfer, change state, so I'm back in EMT school again. And it's like learning to drive again after having your license for 20 years. And you're trying to remember 10 and 2 and do all this kind of stuff. Looks like we got a question coming in. Did I see a question, Kevin?
How does an
Yep,
active
just threw it in there.
firefighter, yep, how does an active firefighter with a new idea take that a new product to market in the fire service?
I get asked that a lot. So, um, you have to be really open-minded about it. It depends on your idea. If it's a really simple idea that you can build yourself, like, do you need to protect it? You need patents, maybe, maybe not. Like, the more complex the idea, more money you're going to need, more help you're going to need. So you have to really think of that first and then decide if that's something you can pursue. One thing I can promise you is people mistake patents for money. Like when you write a patent, you can't tell what that is. It doesn't look good. Nobody understands. So you have to plan on, if you have an idea, you have got to have a plan to at least bring it to a prototype, right? Like you've got to know that you can build it and show people. Like that's the biggest thing. You got to be ready for that because until they can have something and hold something, it's tough.
Did you get investors up front, or was like when you went to IDEX, that was when you were like, okay, now I need investors?
No, so again, this goes to like, how do I do it? So, okay, one is understand your complexity. So, know you're gonna have to build it or do something with it. And then, okay, so here's the risk management. So, can I prototype something by myself? Like, how much is that? So, in my particular instance, I had an insanely complex thing to do. I needed help. I needed software people, components, fire trucks, all that stuff. So but how did I get there, right? I started with just patents. You're talking tens of thousands of dollars. And then we went to not quite proof of concept, but kind of showing the concept to get some buy-in. So you're talking double tens of thousands of dollars, like you're getting up there. And then it was go to prototype. And then it was like, you're talking angel investor-ish, like you're going to have to get some hard money lending. And then if you want to get into business, you're talking something way bigger. So, and again, that's all scalable depending on how complex your idea is. But that's the thing is risk management. Like, let's start small. Let's build a trinket that won't make me lose my home. And then, let's see how that goes. Let's see if we get some interest and we see a way forward. And then you can go on from there.
Jason, I'll give you experience and tell me what you think of this. So I worked with a guy, he was a volunteer, and he created this software, and it was beautiful. and it would track volunteer firefighters, the calls, their training, station duties, and it was just simple. And I remember telling them, I said, "Hey man, you really need to take this to market. I think you have something." Now, of course, there's these huge software companies out there, but this was designed for a very small department, very simple, very low cost. And the first thing he said out of his mouth, he's like, "Man, I'm not doing this to make money. I'm just trying to help." How do we change over, right? Because inherently, right, firefighters were about the job, about the community. And sometimes we forget that, hey, listen, this is a great thing that can serve the fire service, but we got to get it into the hands of the people. In order to do that, it takes funding. How do we cross that bridge? How do you do that, Jason?
You got to be willing to jump out of that plane, man. Like it's if you got to have that passion. Like they weren't feeling it, like it's you got to be ready. It's like people who want to be really competitive at sports or anything else. If you aren't solely focused and driven towards that single goal, if you feel that, then you should start. If you don't feel that, then you had a good idea, you're a clever person, and maybe it's the world telling you like maybe it won't work out. But yeah, I think that's the first thing, that person wasn't like solely driven to get that done. And if you don't have that, it won't happen. There's just too much you have to get done.
So,
Too many hurdles to jump.
so for you, let's see if this helps some of the listeners out there on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. If they got questions, send them in. But see if this helped. Did you want to take your technology to the next level to make money or to help the fire service?
So it's really crazy how I got that bug. Like, so I had the idea and I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. We started the patent process because, like I said, it wasn't going to break me. Like, you can't do if you're in a competitive environment, something like this, there's no sense in even trying it if you don't have patent protection. You'll just get walked on. That's okay. That's the world. So during the patent process, I needed to start talking to people I knew who were never on the fire ground. And I looked up, or I just Googled, I'm sorry, this was back in the day, so I was using Yahoo. I Yahooed.
Yellow
I just,
pages.
yeah, it was close. I'm not that old. Well, I guess I am that old too, but um, I Yahooed. I just wanted some fireground radio traffic. And the first call that came up, and it came off the internet because I think there was some litigation going on at the time. And I don't want to get in this call and like it's been widely debated on the internet, so we're not judging or anything. But this was like back in the early 2000s. The first call that came up was Squirrel's Nest Lane, and it's in the first report. Um, Details don't matter as much, like, but it was one of those fires. I'm listening to it. I had no idea what it was, no idea, and I'm just listening. It sounds like a normal fire ground, and ultimately a couple different things happened, but uh, there was a clear missed call for water. And it was just, that wasn't the problem. You know how it is, domino, 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 right? Like until enough dominoes happen and then something worse. Like we've all made these mistakes on every single fire. And it's not even a mistake, man. It's radio traffic. Like it's not fair to us the way we talk. It's tough. So again, not judging. So I heard this call and I listened to what happened and I was like, I could have I could stop that. This didn't need to happen. And like at that moment, like that thing got in my head, like, I mean, yeah, you have to end up being profitable someday or have a way out. But I told myself, my wife was listening to it. She started crying and was like, you got to do this. And I did. And I almost went broke. Yeah, we pushed it all the way to the edge. And, thank God for IDEX Fire and Safety, seeing the value in it and carrying it forward because it's been a heavy lift for the company too. So, but yeah, it's that thing. That was my thing, was that radio call. And I was like, we're just going to do this until it's done and burned out. So
We have a question from YouTube, but before we get to that, I have a question for you because I ran into something recently. Did you ever have anybody tell you that it was a horrible idea, it wasn't going to work?
oh, everybody at my firehouse. I mean, they were just giving me a hard time. No, I think this is going to be a tough sell to the fire service. It's tech. Like we don't do tech. So
What?
yeah,
No.
it's a secret, guys. Don't tell anybody. All right. We don't. So no, it's a lot of challenges with it, with changing an industry. But
Yeah.
boy, when people see it, they get it after they see it. So
Yeah. So the question is, are there any success stories with the smart panel that maybe helped prevent an injury or accident on the fire ground or improved operations?
I used to be with the customers all the time, and I do have a lot of anecdotes, and I don't ever want to overstate or be inaccurate. I will say Battlefield, Missouri, they're a pretty hard charging firefighting department in the southwest portion of Missouri. Uh, their battalion chief called me one day and said they caught, I think it was three different either rescues or fatalities. Like I think one or two was fatality, one or two was a rescue. I think this particular one ended up being a rescue, like all right in a row, like something you've never heard of, and it was on their SAM truck. And he's like, that pump operator, it was his first day.
Mm.
Wow.
And he basically summarized that. He's like, they were like, without this, it would have been a lot more. Like the thing with this technology is with SAM system, it takes so much stress off the operator, so much stress. It never replaces them, but you're so much more focused on what's going on around you. We need to talk about what it means to have feedback from the truck. Huge difference maker there. We should talk about that in a minute, but yeah, that was a huge one. It really felt good to hear that story. I've got a chief up in Michigan, very early adopter. He's passionate about it. Now that other department was union, 3 or 4 guys on a truck, like firefighting in metropolitan area. Then we've got a rural story. They had a fatality fire, and the chief is emotional about it. He'll tell you, he's like, man, we got there. We didn't have enough people. This fire he could feel the pressure, right? Like this is probably maybe the only fatality they've had at that department since he's been there. They don't get many. And he felt all that pressure, and he's like, I could command the scene. I could run the truck. My people got to do what they needed to do. Everybody was like, you hear him tell that story. And that's the stuff where I'm like, man, it made almost going bankrupt worth it. The eight or so years of struggle to get to where we are today. So yeah, we do have, and I think there's probably a lot of stories that never happened because of it, but we can't really prove it. So
That's a good point. The stories that didn't happen. Yeah.
That's the goal.
A classic thing in the risk reduction world. We'd say, how many risks did you reduce? Well, sometimes we reduce some that you don't even know. But I also we got another question, but if I don't do this, I'll hear about it later. So the fire chief texts me because he didn't think I ate enough lunch, and I've got a thing about eating enough lunch. Good chief. He came in and brought me a smoothie off camera. What a good boss. A special shout out to Fire Chief Michael Thomas and Tropical Smoothie for taking care of me. So if you see
Are
me
we still going for sponsorship?
always, my man, always.
Yeah,
So
I think
you
that
see
was
me
a free
sipping my
I think you got your
smoothie.
free swag.
That's it. I'm trying to just, get right. So here's a question. Let's see what we think. It's from Heather on LinkedIn. Thank you, Heather. Says, how do departments buy new technology that does not have standards written around it? Ooh.
Well, it's a good question. So that's kind of what we're doing. So we've got a department down in Florida that's got the retrofit version. So that's the retrofit's the toughest to adapt to for this kind of story because I can take a truck you have today, and in 2 days I can retrofit a little bit of our tech and change the game for you and get you that help. And you do need to kind of rewrite SOGs for it because how do you redefine what your pump operator should be doing and stuff like that? Now, I think to Heather's question, it's kind of like the invention question is it depends on how much you're changing. So for us, we don't change things too drastically. So some changes in SOGs aren't too difficult. And I think the big thing is getting the tech at your department, understanding it well, and getting the same, whoever writes usually with what we do, it's all fireground operations. So whoever would normally write those SOGs, it's pretty easy to take a look at the tech and decide what you want to do next. So we're not really breaking the mold all the way, but that's a great thing is we've just had that conversation come up is dealing with SOGs with this technology.
Yeah. What do you think, Scott? How do you do that?
Yeah, I was going to take a little stab at this too, because so at TSI in Oklahoma City, which by the way, you see Oklahoma City Thunder, that we went to their game. They're one game away from winning the finals. I think we had something to do with that.
Swag, Oklahoma City Thunder.
I think Chief Kelly can pull through.
Yeah.
Good luck charms here, baby. Send it.
And so a couple things. One, Jason opened up for us and did an amazing job, with his opening speech on leadership at TSI. So that was a great presentation you
Thank
gave.
you.
The pre-con before that, Will, Kevin, and I were in the room. We had what we called Summit at the Summit, and we invited pretty much every acronym player you can think of in the fire service to come in there. And the emphasis for it was the NIST report of a roadmap to technology. Kevin, I know I'm butchering the name of it. Do you remember what the report name is?
The research roadmap to the future of smart firefighting.
Okay. So that was the
Say
impetus
that
of
five
it.
times fast.
Yeah. So we had NIST in there, we had NFPA, we had just like I said, every acronym player, and we wanted to help chiefs with a roadmap for implementing technology, and the consensus of the room was yes, we need standards around technology in the fire service, and then everybody kept looking over to NFPA, which for Chelsea Rubido was there for us, and she was like, guys, we can't do it. We cannot write a standard fast enough for technology. And I think that was like that just kind of shocked everybody in the room. They're like, you know what, you're right. Just the way that NFPA works and how they write their standards and how fast technology is developing. So there probably will never be standards from the NFPA or major organizations on technology. We just can't keep up fast enough. What we're doing on the Tech Council is we're trying to come up with implementation suggestions and adoption suggestions for fire chiefs and fire departments. It's a conglomerate. We have members from on the Tech Council across the country, and in some, as far away as Germany and other countries. So we're trying to get a consensus of what would match the entire country on how to adopt and implement technology.
Do you see, Scott, the question that came in? I want Kevin to ask this question, and if you don't mind, I want to take it because
Yeah.
you will not
And
believe what
and
I'm going to tell you.
and I guess, regardless of any NDAs or anything, just I love this question. So
We need
it's
patents,
Scott.
right?
Let
Yeah,
me take the
Scott, Will,
first
and
crack at
Jason.
it, and
What are
just watch.
what are some innovations that you have in your mind that you haven't created yet?
So I'm not going to tell you about any today. I'm going to take you back about 5 years ago when I worked for Columbia Fire Department as a division chief. We covered 700 plus square miles, 32 stations, 40,000 runs a year, about 700 working jobs a year. Just an insane place to work. Lots of fun, a lot of great people down there. But I was having this conversation with the special ops chief and the communications officer. So three fire nerds sitting around, and I was telling them about how the fire service needs to change its model. Trucks were breaking. It was right near COVID, so supply chains. And I said, we cannot continue to run these massive trucks up and down the road. It's just not sustainable. And they said, what's the answer, Will? And I said, now you guys are going to laugh. You're going to think I'm crazy. But I think down the road, you're going to have these drones that are going to be able to lift off of vehicles or from a station, and they're going to zip to the call, and they're going to be able to give you a size up, and you're going to be able to look at it and see, is it really burning, or is traffic blocked? Do we need to go another way? And these guys laughed me out of the room. That is the dumbest idea. How the drone laws, and it's never going to work. And guess what's going on today? So my point behind all that is, if you're in the fire service right now and you have an idea that you think will absolutely be better for the fire service in your community, like Jason said, man, jump off the porch, check with your spouse before you get the second mortgage, right? They try to get you divorced, but you got to go for it. And I'm looking at these departments now doing the same thing that I was talking about 5 years. And maybe I was already too late, I don't know. But I just wanted to share that when I saw that question, I'm like, man, if that was 5 years ago, I would have told you about these flying robots that could, go look at fires first. What about you, Scott? Anything out there that I can steal now from you?
I want an interoperability device.
Ooh. Ooh, I don't know what that word means, so you got to explain it.
Yeah. But I want, yeah, just a device that I can get what I want and my neighbor can get what they want, and we can respond together and we can communicate and we can share common operating pictures, and then we go back home.
You mean like I could implement new RMS technology and it just takes all my records and I wouldn't have to fuss and fight between two companies?
Or like a universal translator, like from Star Trek.
Eureka. What about you, Jason?
Well, I got to be careful since I work in the industry now,
Yeah.
but no, I can tell you, we actually talked about this at the Tech Summit quite a bit. We Kevin, can't remember if you were in that panel or not, but we had we had someone there that was huge on data, and she had really good conversation about, is your data too noisy? Is your data just right? Or is it silent? And um, our pump houses, because there's no technology in there, it's all manual valves and levers. Nothing knows anything. So our pump houses are completely silent. So that's a big thing we're working on right now, is bringing, now that we're getting our automation out into the field, we're developing that ability to start bringing data out of your pump house back to the firehouse. So you can recreate fire grounds. You can see if you crashed hydrants, ran out of water, pressure control, when you charge lines, all that stuff. So that is where we're heading, and we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, any of your competitors, Jason, they may have lobbed that question. They're sitting there with their pen.
I know. Did you check that for a water?
Yeah, good point.
No, we love, they're a good company. We love them. Like, I get along with, that's one thing I love about this industry is I hang out with all of our competitors. You know, we all get along pretty well. There's not a lot of animosity out there. So yeah, it's cool. Oh, we do have one thing on the Gen 2 nozzles that people probably haven't seen yet. So I know people don't know much about the fire nozzles yet, but for those people who do have our remote nozzles right now, they charge their own line. You can charge your own line. You have water level information at the nozzle, so your TAC crew can decide if they need to retreat or advance. They can see when it's on hydrant. And then we do kink detection. That's another big thing about this feedback, which is a big deal for the fire service. But the Gen 2 nozzles we're releasing right now, they're getting ready to go into beta. We're doing self-rescue beacon. So that's kind of the latest and greatest. That's what I had been working on this last fall. So basically, if you're in a fire, and they say 20% of maydays are a firefighter who's lost and asking for help, and they're like, hey, help me, I'm lost. So the pump operator can actually hit a button back at the panel, and these smart nozzles will light up, and it'll punch through about 20 feet of dense smoke. So you can be anywhere in a 20 by 20 room, and you can find that nozzle in under 5 seconds, and then find your way out of the building or start fighting fire again. So that's my latest thing we're dropping.
That is amazing technology. And Scott, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I feel like I'm batting, 0% here. So I'm going to try one more time. So Jason, just throwing it out there. If you need any testers for the beta 2, you got 2 fire departments here, my man. We're always willing to, take some swag and there's some tools and use it. So I'm just trying to get on base at this point, right?
Yeah, we actually we are doing some of that right now. So we are in certain regions, we're looking for seed systems, because that's the thing, like, nothing's more powerful than when the firefighters are using it. And the technology, to the best of our knowledge, has 100% adoption or repurchase rate. So it's one of those things, man. People joke about going back to flip phones. But if you actually took a flip phone today and started trying to text on it, like, you'd be done pretty quick. So it's the same thing with the tech. And what's really cool about the tech is when the fire department gets it, and I'll say the more experienced firefighters, usually they're the more aged ones. So our experienced firefighters, they understand that if something truly takes stress out of the fire ground, how are you going to put that stress back responsibly? And so that's why we have such a solid repurchase rate, is once they get it and they use it. And when I go out and do demos, people want me to say things to them that'll make them trust it. I have to tell people, like, look, man, I can tell you how it works. I can tell you where the benefits are. We can talk about the needs of your department. But at the end of the day, like, I can't get you. You will have to build that trust yourself. So the seed systems are pretty important to us. So if you guys want to chat after, we can talk about where you're at and what your departments are like. So
I feel like we're close, Scott. We're close.
you may have to hang a sign in the back. You may have finally got a sponsor. We'll have to see how
baby. I will hang
All
a
right,
sign
we got
in the back, though. I will.
got another good question from LinkedIn that would be good for all three of you. And as I see this question, I can imagine maybe you rolling your eyes, but also getting excited. What are some of the biggest barriers to adopting new technology? Is it funding, leadership, standard process, or something else?
Yes.
DLD both.
That stereo.
Oh,
I guess for my world as a budget chief, it's funding, right?
Yeah.
It's my job to make sure our firefighters, have the best that we can afford, and manage the budget for the fire chief and the city leadership. So for me, it's just making sure we're spending the dollars wisely. and that what we're buying is really actually going to benefit the firefighters and something that they can actually use, rather than just buying some kind of flashy gadget that in 6 months it's on a shelf somewhere. So I try to take that part really serious. Matter of fact, we have a theme for the incoming budget is firefighters first. And so this next budget year, unless it directly improves their job, we really want to steer away from it. It's making sure that they have everything in their living quarters, their uniforms, everything, an improvement to where we were last time, and including technology. So for me, it's definitely funding.
Yeah, I think.
That's-
Go ahead, Scott, if you want
No,
to.
go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
Like listening to you, like like funding is budget, right? Like we've got to make choices. So I've found that when we go out there and we put this new solution in there, it's never budgeted for because it's new, right? So nobody had a plan at the beginning, and then when the leadership part of that question, I don't think it's so much. Well, it can be leadership sometimes, right? Some people are like, nope, not looking at it, not doing it, and then you got other leadership that just buys everything, and you do have the fancy toys.
Hmm.
But I think the leadership component is more about how difficult it is to make a decision within any organization, right? You got all these different players, all these different opinions. The fire service, we all grew up with each other, so we don't get a lot of outside coaching when it comes to managing large organizations. And so that is a challenge. I wouldn't call it leadership. I would just call it organizational awareness, like the process of evaluating things. And how often do we put committees together and everybody's just fighting about the idea they want? So,
That's why you
and I'm
don't do
guilty.
committees. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm guilty of all this too. So,
I hate
I'm not
committees.
judging. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I know I like teams because teams are goal oriented, they're time bound, they have an agenda where committees go on forever. Everybody brings their personal agenda. They suffer from scope creep, so create a team and have goals and objectives to it, but not a committee. So it's interesting. I mean, I think it's depending upon the department, it could lean more one way than the other towards it could be funding for one department or just talking to Will's department's not so much funding. It could be, standard processes or change management, organizational awareness. So it's a little bit different for every department. I think though that the fire service, when we kind of talked about this before the show, and we were talking about a little bit last on the last show just before, but I think we're headed down an unsustainable path and Will kind of hit on it when he's talking about these $2 million pieces of apparatus up and down the road. And I think that it's important in the future to start looking at technology adoption because it can be a force multiplier. And we can augment our forces where we can't necessarily hire new people. That technology can maybe help augment our forces. So it's like having that fourth person on the apparatus. So I think it's important to look at that technology and weigh out the benefits and drawbacks, but and the funding aspect of it. It's also we need to have technology in our strategic plans. Your department's strategic plan needs to have technology in it. Yes, technology changes fast, and it may not be the same next year as it is this year. But if you have a plan and you're looking at down the road, and you're looking at your CAD systems and all your systems you have operating together, when you start to develop or implement technology, it's just a helps with that standard process in implementing that technology.
I think our attitude towards it has hurt us in the sense that we haven't done a great job with technology in the fire service because nobody wants it. So like when we get it, instead of like finding the best way to utilize it or what should be the next level, we spend most of our time angry at it or trying to not do it. And so we haven't had the great ideas. We haven't had the implementation, like the implementation you guys are talking about, because everybody wants their own thing. Like it's a whole, it's become I guess it's just hard. Do you kind of follow what I'm saying? Like we don't want it, so we aren't good at it, right? Like
And it's funny too, because I'll hear firefighters talk about, I don't understand technology, and then they start FaceTiming their kids on their iPhone, and so
struggle.
it's not technology. I think it's more of like you said. I think that we have done a horrible job implementing technology in the fire service. I think one of the biggest killers of technology is reliability. We buy products, we don't do our research, we don't make it part of the strategic plan. We get the shiny new toy, and it doesn't work with our systems. And the firefighters, they'll give it two or three times, and if it quits working, they'll find a workaround.
And
Years
that's
ago,
fair.
yeah,
That's fair. I don't blame them for that.
yeah. I was sitting at a table at a conference several years ago, and the fire chiefs were all patting themselves on the back about how they fixed this problem with their technology department. I was like, wait a minute, did you fix it, or did the firefighters just quit complaining about it? Because if they just quit complaining about it, they probably found a workaround. And if you go look, that problem's probably still there. I remember when we got new MDCs in our department, probably that was 10 years ago. We had all kinds of issues with them, and we were having meetings with our IT department. A few years ago, I switched offices and I was going through all my paperwork, and I found this list of things that was wrong with it. And I went out there and looked, still the same things. We just found workarounds for every one of them 10 years later.
And we still do that, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why I always say the firefighter is not a position, right? It's a mentality. And we are all firefighters to the core. And it's the same thing. If the bosses walk in today and hand you something with no involvement, no training, no buy-in,
Yeah.
you will eventually find a workaround for that solution. I mean, that's inherently what firefighters do. We arrive on the scene, we have a game plan in place, and if it doesn't work, guess what? We find a workaround. We're going to get the job done at the end of the day. And so sometimes I applaud that mentality because that's just who we are. But be aware of who we are, right? So involve those folks early, often. Listen to their ideas, foster that innovation, and make sure you have all those people at the seat of the table with you. One thing we're working on right now, talking about those trucks, is a maintenance crew. And so we have an internal maintenance crew. They're various ages, and we're saying, hey, listen, we have a budget. This is how much we can, compensate you for overtime. But how do we keep these trucks on the road? How do we keep things rolling? Are you all seeing things in the field? I'm not an operator anymore. Is this a common problem? All right, so now take that knowledge, apply it to the next truck build, and let's eliminate that issue. You bring those people in and listen to them.
I was looking at the next question and I was like, oh yeah, that's why we even had this show to talk about innovation. We talked about innovation. So at TSI in Oklahoma City last year, we had this idea as we were planning it. It's like we wanted to create an innovation award. And what we want to do is have fire departments submit, what are they doing that's innovative? And we actually had some really good submissions. We had 24 submissions. And we went to IDEX and we said, hey, we want to give this award. Do you want to be part of it? And IDEX jumped at the chance to be part of the Innovation Award. And I heard more compliments and more people say that was probably one of the best parts of the show was, for one, just hearing what other departments are doing. Because I think that innovation sparks innovation. So when you hear somebody being innovative, you didn't really, well, I never thought about that idea. I didn't know we could do that. So it just creates more innovation in other departments. And then you hear how easy it is for departments to do this innovation. But I remember saying when we were up there talking about it on stage, I was like, I wonder what the culture is like in these departments to have this innovation because you have to be able to accept failure. And in some cases, I think you need to reward failure. It's like I mean, it's not true, but I heard Thomas Edison said, I didn't make 999 mistakes when I was trying to invent the light bulb. I found 999 ways not to make a light bulb.
Mhm.
So you have to like be able to accept that innovation or accept the mistakes and learn from it and move on. And I'm sure, when you were innovating for your smart panel, you had several mistakes and you had to do that and move on. So, but the question is, how can you build a culture of innovation, culture of embracing new ways to do stuff in your fire department?
I think you just nailed it, Scott. And I think Jason's going to maybe follow up on this is that not being afraid to miss that shot, right? I always use when I'm teaching the example, and I'm not a LeBron James fan, I'm a Jordan fan anyway, but you say, who's the leading scorer in the NBA? It's LeBron James. Well, who's the leading in missed field goals? It's the same person, LeBron James. And so if you're going to score points, you got to take shots. If you take shots, sometimes you're going to miss, but that shouldn't deter you from shooting the ball, so to speak. Jason, was that your experience? If you were to look at your first product versus where you are now, where would we be? So what do you think
Yeah,
about that?
yeah, that's the thing is just constantly reevaluating. But I want to say something that I heard Bobby Halton say. I was very fortunate long time ago before he was super huge. He was teaching a class in St. Louis County as a smaller class, and he really shamed us for our fire service culture of he's like, do you guys know why you feel the way you do at fires? Like why you're so scared to make a mistake? Because you all make fun of each other. Like, if I make this mistake, like the heat's coming, like, it's and I look again, guilty, like it's fun. Like we have our fun at the firehouse. Like it's the right thing. And I think it's after hearing him say that and the way that he said it, I don't think I became any nicer of a guy. But I think it really sat with me. Like it really made me understand that um, if you're going to tear someone down, at least build them up or understand the failures. Be okay with talking about it. Because how many times do we make mistakes on fires and we don't admit to it? We cover it up. And then we can't fix the issues. So, and I see it daily when I'm out talking to fire departments about new technology. It's kind of what we talked about at the TSI. Like part of my keynote was that if you put the solution in front of them first, they won't admit to the problems. And it's tough, man. So to build that culture, it takes everybody. Like it's gonna take a while to turn that ship around, I would say, because that's what keeps us from innovating is fear of failure. It's what keeps us from buying new things on the fire ground. It's fear of failure, right?
Or
Yeah,
keeps
keep
you
shooting the
from
ball.
creating an invention and going out there and almost going broke, but
Yeah,
turning
there's
it
a lot
into
of
a
failure there,
success.
man. The first day that the first day we programmed, this was the moment, man. We were going to hit one button and water was going to do everything at once. He's like, turn it off, turn it off. Like every discharge opened on the whole truck at once.
Did you get water? Did you
We
get
got
water?
water. We got a
There
lot
you
of water. So
go.
yeah, that was day one. We've come a long way since 2016. So
But if you think back day one of, and that's what we have to remember, right? Day one of recruit school or day one of the putting on your turnout gear. And if you were to have a video of that or pictures, I bet we all looked a hot mess, right? And then day 100, day 200, year, whatever, we perfected and we perfect our craft. Again, we don't let it stop us, right? We keep pushing forward, we keep shooting the ball, and we keep moving forward. That to me is how you build that culture. If the guys are ribbing you a little bit for a mistake, hey, take it and improve on it. You know what I mean? Got to keep pushing forward.
I think a big change in the fire service, and we are starting to realize this. We have been masters at community involvement, PR, community relations. It's been amazing. We have never had to recruit,
Yeah.
right? Like we used to do the application process. We're like, y'all are lucky if you can come here, and that's changing.
Yeah.
The trades learned around the year 2020, nothing to do with COVID, but they learned that the birth rate had gone way down, and so there's just not, and that was 20 years ago. So guess what? You got 20-year-olds, and there's a lot less of them. So the trades got really competitive when it came to that. And us in the fire service, it was you're lucky to be here. Don't look at that truck for 10 years. All the culture that I think a lot of it's important, right? Like having that rigidity, the day-to-day stuff, taking care of your equipment, all that. Like that's what fostered our current culture, and it's good. But we've got to start to change a little bit. We don't want to lose that, but we've got to start moving forward because these new generation of kids, they're different. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. They're not as accepting of people who won't do technology. They're not as accepting of a
Mhm.
culture who hate, like what they call it, rage baiting now or whatever they do. So, I do see us adjusting. I can hear us starting to talk different. Would you agree with that? Like
Yeah, it's slow, Jason, right?
Yeah.
And a guy complaining about it. He said,
it's
"Oh,
hurting us right
these
now.
kids," and I said, "They're smarter than we were. They're asking for
Mm-hmm.
more money. They're not settling for broken stuff, and they're asking questions, man. They're smarter than we ever were, and applaud them for that. Embrace it now.
Mm-hmm.
There's still something to be said about tradition. So you fostered a tradition, you teach them what you've been taught, but you also harnessed their abilities and what they bring to the table. Everybody brings something different to the table, right?
Yep. I just told my kid, like when I had to learn how to work out back in the 90s, I had to like read a magazine. It's whatever was on that one page. This dude can watch 3,000 videos. So they can learn in a minute what we used to have to spend a day going through a
Yeah.
Rolodex at a library. So good, they are learning faster.
What's
They
a
are,
Rolodex? I'm
yeah,
asking.
Dewey Decimal System or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An abacus.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're sliding this stuff. No, it's today's generation is different. We're blessed to have them in the fire service, and it's up to us. Uh,
And Will, that's a good
yeah.
point on the generations, maybe with the last 5 minutes of speaking about different generations and how that's impacting the rate or the approach to adopting new technology. Granted, I look at my son, he's officially part of the new generation, Gen Beta. Then you had before that Gen Alpha and Gen Z, and just looking at being born with devices in your hand, just kind of that the mindset of how everyone kind of thinks these generations think differently and act differently. They all are actually quite similar, but just kind of on the surface, things that look a little different, in my opinion. But just nonetheless, when thinking about generational differences, how does that play into the story here when it comes to, let's say, taking from a fire department, embracing new ways to do stuff? Um, any insights on how generational differences are something that we need to consider?
Yeah, I think you're going to definitely see more changes as the leadership changes at those top levels. As this current generation that's coming in the door get into leadership positions, I'd love to go back on YouTube and watch this episode again and see if the fire service is in the same place when it comes to innovation and embracing technology and the challenges of it. Because I think it will be so axiomatic to these young folks that it won't even be a question. It will be more like you guys didn't embrace technology because they're born with it, like you said, in the palm of their hands. Where I'm a millennial, 40-year-old millennial, and we embraced it kind of as we've grown, right? So we've gone from the Dewey Decimal System to the old CD-ROMs to the cloud. All of that has been within our lifespan of learning technology. And these young ones, there's completely different. So that's what I'm excited about, Kevin, is seeing them carry us to the next level in the future of the fire service.
And I worry, I think Gen Z, they want to work. They just want to work on different terms than baby boomer generation or my generation.
So do
But
I.
they do want to work. But I worry that they're going to be disenchanted when they join the fire service and see how slow we are to adopting technology. And like you said, the iPhone came out in 2007. I mean, 18 years ago. So those kids are just now entering the fire service that were born with an iPhone in their hand. They were used to constant updates and technology advancements at the speed of light. So they're going to join the fire service and find that we are very slow to adopt technology and implement it. I think we're getting better, but we're still slow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
research is showing that generationally, Gen Z and Alpha will go away from those jobs. They don't do repetition. They won't do anything they think should be automated. They'll buck that system.
Yeah.
I'm all for it, man. I love it. I think they're going to take us right where we need to be as a fire
Mhm.
service. I really do.
I hope
Um,
so.
They're gonna need a
because,
little bit of that old school stuff at first,
well,
though.
that's why I said
With the
you got to
tech.
keep a little, you got to keep a little bit of that around.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a
Yep.
balancing act, right? It's a seesaw, in moderation. Everything's good in moderation.
We see I mean, specifically on the fire truck side, like I'm seeing people make fire truck decisions daily, and a lot of times people, I didn't think of this myself. Somebody else mentioned it to me, but a lot of these people, you got 40 and 50-year-olds buying fire trucks for people who haven't been born yet.
Yeah.
Like you got to think of things that way. Like you're going to order a truck today, you're not going to see it for 2 to 4 years, you're going to have it for 20. And you're making decisions today that are going to be frontline 10, 12 years from now. And that's going to look, I mean, just think 10, 12 years ago is like
There you go, Jason. Because how are they basing their decisions off of?
off
Their
of their
past.
experiences. Yeah. And you know what? Again, I'll give them credit where credit's due. In 2010, electronics in the fire service were not successful, and
Mhm.
some still aren't today. There's a lot of changes that have been made, but we're not acknowledging that. So we're like when I got in, like this won't work, that won't work. I'm like, well, what happened? Well, back and then, and I'm like, well, dude, that was 2010, man. Like, I
But
hear you.
firefighters, man, if it happened in 2005, it happened yesterday.
That's a
Yes,
fact, bro.
sir. That is a fact. That is a fact.
Good, good. Kevin, wrap us up, my man. We're right there at that hour. Jason, it's
Yeah,
been
well,
great catching up. Yeah, no.
thank you, Jason, and for being our lone star. It's nothing that you're not accustomed to, and I'm sure Daniel was on the call, and we'll have to get some of the Innovation Award members part of the other ones. But I always enjoy being kind of a fly on the wall here, but also being an active moderator with all of you. And great to see all the engagement from Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. So we encourage you to continue to throw in the comments and suggestions. We're going to start chopping up the episodes more for short form. And I think big thing for you, if you have questions or comments or ideas for what you want to see for future episodes, let us know. Right now we're on Zoom and using a software called Restream that allows us to go LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, or LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And so we're just wanting to continue to find ways to grow it all. And kudos to you, Scott and Will, for continuing to be stalwarts of this conversation. And Jason, you are the epitome of what it means to be a firefighter or entrepreneur that's doing it for the right reason. So thank you, Jason, for all the work and continued service that you do.
Thank you for that. I'll be around. So keep fighting.
Yeah, you're not leaving. We got to get those nozzles anyway.
All right. Yeah, we can talk. We can talk.
And I think IDEX is officially coming back to TSI. Is that official yet, or
They don't let me make decisions, Scott, but I would assume so. I don't know.
Yeah, so you catch Jason if you have questions for him about how he got to where he is, and any and want any advice from him. He'll be at TSI this year. We'll be in Irving, Texas, December 9th through 11th. So make sure you join that. Thank you, Jason. This hour has gone by fast. It's been great talking to you. I want to thank Fire Rescue One and IFC for partnering with us to make this happen.
Thank you all. Have a good day.